feet straight up in the air on this crane.
For millions of television viewers, Johnny Gage was never simply another fictional hero wearing a uniform. He represented a profession that barely existed in the public imagination. Before Emergency arrived on American television in 1972, most people could recognize a police officer or a firefighter, but the word paramedic meant very little outside a handful of pioneering emergency medical programs. Then, almost overnight, audiences were introduced to a calm, highly trained medical professional racing through Los Angeles in a rescue squad, making split-second decisions that often meant the difference between life and death. The series did far more than entertain. It educated. It helped convince an entire generation that emergency medicine belonged on the streets long before patients reached a hospital. At the center of that cultural shift stood Randolph Mantooth, whose natural warmth and quiet confidence transformed Johnny Gage into one of television's most enduring public servants. His performance inspired thousands of young people to pursue careers in emergency medical services, with many later admitting that a television program had first planted the idea that saving lives could become a calling. When news emerged that Randolph Mantooth had died on the 9th of July, 2026 at the age of 80, following a long illness while receiving hospice care in Ventura, California, the reaction extended well beyond fans of classic television. Firefighters, paramedics, emergency medical technicians, and first responders across America mourned someone who had become an unlikely ambassador for their profession. Few actors leave behind a legacy that stretches so far beyond the screen. Fewer still help redefine how an entire profession is understood by the public. Randolph Mantooth is survived by his wife, Kristen Conness, who remained by his side throughout the later years of his life. Despite spending decades in the public eye, he kept his personal life remarkably private, choosing to focus attention on his work rather than his relationships. One light-hearted story emerged from former co-star Lisa Lo, who revealed that she had a crush on Mantooth during the years they worked together on Loving and the City. Her affectionate recollection reflected the warmth and kindness colleagues often associated with him, but no further verified details about his personal relationships have been publicly documented. Long before he became synonymous with emergency medicine, Randolph Mantooth's own story began in circumstances that were anything but glamorous. Born Randy DeRoy Mantooth on the 19th of September, 1945 in Sacramento, California, he entered a family whose life was shaped by movement, hard work, and resilience. His father, Donald Mantooth, was of Cherokee and Seminole heritage and worked in construction, following projects wherever employment could be found. His mother, Sadie, came from German and English ancestry and provided stability as the family relocated repeatedly during Randolph's childhood. The constant moves meant adapting to new schools, new classmates, and new surroundings with remarkable frequency, an experience that quietly developed the confidence and flexibility that would later serve him well as an actor. Growing up in post-war America, there was little reason to imagine Hollywood lay ahead. Construction work dictated the family's direction rather than any carefully planned destination, and life revolved around practical concerns rather than dreams of celebrity. Yet each relocation exposed the young Randy to different communities and personalities, subtly expanding his understanding of people. Those observations would eventually become valuable tools for an actor capable of portraying sincerity without appearing theatrical. The turning point came after the family settled in Santa Barbara. At San Marcos High School, drama unexpectedly became more than an extracurricular activity. Performing before an audience awakened something that had previously remained hidden. Teachers recognized a natural stage presence, while classmates noticed an easy authenticity that distinguished him from performers relying on exaggerated emotion. Acting no longer felt like pretending. Instead, it became a way of exploring character and human behavior. After graduating, he enrolled at Santa Barbara City College, continuing to nurture ambitions that still seemed uncertain. Professional acting remained an improbable career for someone from an ordinary working family, but talent has a way of attracting opportunity. Before long, he secured a scholarship to the prestigious American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City, a life-changing moment that transported him from California to one of the world's great theatrical centers. New York demanded reinvention. It was there that Randy DeRoy Mantooth gradually evolved into Randolph Mantooth, adopting the more formal name that producers believed better suited a professional actor. More importantly, he immersed himself in disciplined theatrical training, learning that convincing performances depended not on flashy emotion but on truthfulness, restraint, and careful observation. The Academy challenged students to understand motivation, rhythm, and emotional honesty rather than simply memorizing dialogue. His dedication quickly became apparent. Among the productions staged during his training, one proved especially significant. Cast in Brian Friel's acclaimed play Philadelphia, Here I Come, Mantooth delivered a performance that earned the Charles Gellinger Award, one of the Academy's highest honors recognizing exceptional promise. Winning the award validated years of uncertainty, but its greatest value lay in attracting industry attention. A Universal Studios talent scout attended the performance and immediately recognized qualities that translated naturally to television. At a time when studios still operated something resembling the old contract system, discovering promising young performers remained an essential part of business. Mantooth possessed leading man looks without arrogance, emotional openness without melodrama, and an approachable quality that audiences instinctively trusted. Universal signed him, opening the door to Hollywood at precisely the moment television sought fresh faces capable of carrying a new generation of dramatic programming. The transition from theater student to working television actor rarely happened overnight, and Mantooth paid the same professional dues as countless performers before him. Universal carefully introduced him through a succession of guest appearances, allowing casting directors and audiences to become familiar with his work across different genres. He appeared in police dramas, westerns, and medical series, steadily building a reputation as an actor who elevated supporting roles through quiet credibility rather than scene-stealing theatrics. Viewers began encountering him on programs including Ironside, The Virginian, Marcus Welby, M.D., McCloud, Adam 12, and Alias Smith and Jones. Each appearance sharpened his screen instincts. Television production moved at remarkable speed during the late 1960s and early 1970s, requiring actors to master scripts quickly while maintaining believable performances under relentless schedules. Mantooth adapted with ease. Directors appreciated his professionalism, while producers recognized someone who arrived prepared, collaborated willingly, and never complicated production. Despite this growing resume, no single role had yet revealed his full potential. That opportunity arrived almost by accident during an episode of The Bold Ones. Acting opposite the acclaimed Hal Holbrook, Mantooth performed an emotionally devastating scene in which his character broke down while delivering heartfelt testimony. It demanded vulnerability without sentimentality, intensity without exaggeration. Instead of relying on theatrical displays, he allowed genuine emotion to surface gradually, creating a moment that felt painfully authentic. Watching that performance was producer Robert Cinader, already developing a groundbreaking new drama alongside television legend Jack Webb. Cinader was searching for someone capable of portraying a young paramedic who needed to project competence, compassion, and understated humor without slipping into television hero cliches. According to accounts repeated over the years, the moment Mantooth finished that emotional scene, Cinader turned and declared, "That is my Johnny Gage." The decision would alter not only Randolph Mantooth's career, but also television history. It reflected something deeper than successful casting. Cinader recognized that Mantooth possessed a quality impossible to manufacture through wardrobe, dialogue, or direction. Audiences believed him. They trusted him instinctively. Whether comforting an injured child, reassuring a frightened patient, or standing beside fellow firefighters, he communicated sincerity with remarkable ease. That trust would become the foundation upon which Emergency built its extraordinary influence. The series required viewers to believe that these rescue workers were genuine professionals carrying enormous responsibility. Had the central performances felt artificial, the educational mission behind the program might never have succeeded. Instead, Randolph Mantooth arrived at exactly the right moment, bringing with him years of careful preparation that had quietly shaped the actor capable of convincing America that the future of emergency medicine had already arrived. When Emergency premiered on NBC as a mid-season replacement in January 1972, few could have predicted that a modest drama about firefighters and a little-known medical profession would become one of the most influential television series of its era. Police dramas had long dominated American screens, and hospital programs were already familiar territory. A show following rescue workers operating between those two worlds seemed like a gamble. Yet almost immediately, audiences responded to something refreshingly different. Rather than centering on detectives chasing criminals or doctors working inside hospital walls, Emergency focused on the crucial moments in between, where ordinary people depended upon highly trained responders arriving within minutes to save their lives. The realism was no accident. Producer Robert Cinader and executive producer Jack Webb approached the series with almost documentary-like discipline. Webb, already respected for Dragnet and Adam 12, believed that authenticity created stronger drama than exaggerated spectacle. Instead of inventing sensational emergencies simply to shock viewers, the writers drew inspiration from genuine Los Angeles County Fire Department incident reports and rescue logs. Real calls became the starting point for scripts, grounding every episode in situations firefighters and paramedics actually encountered. Medical procedures were researched carefully, rescue techniques reflected current practice, and the dialogue carried an understated professionalism that distinguished the series from many television dramas of the period. This commitment to realism extended well beyond the scripts. Randolph Mantooth and Kevin Tighe, who played veteran paramedic Roy DeSoto, understood that convincing performances required more than memorizing medical terminology. Before cameras rolled, both actors underwent extensive training alongside members of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. They learned how ambulance crews operated, observed emergency calls, practiced medical procedures, and developed the habits expected of real first responders. Training included learning to insert intravenous lines, understanding emergency assessment techniques, and becoming familiar with the equipment carried aboard rescue vehicles. While licensed professionals always supervised actual medical care, Mantooth and Tighe became sufficiently knowledgeable that firefighters often remarked on how naturally they handled themselves on screen. Their movements reflected repetition rather than rehearsal. Equipment was carried confidently, terminology flowed naturally, and every procedure appeared purposeful instead of theatrical. That preparation proved invaluable because emergency rarely treated medical rescues as opportunities for melodrama. The program embraced what many involved later described as a philosophy of leaving the funny at the door. Although Johnny Gage possessed an easygoing sense of humor and friendly banter enlivened Station 51 between emergency calls, professionalism always took priority once the rescue squad was dispatched. There were no emotional speeches while patients waited for treatment, no unnecessary romantic distractions during life-threatening incidents, and remarkably little attention given to elaborate personal backstories. Modern audiences accustomed to serialized television may find that restraint surprising. Johnny Gage was immensely popular, yet viewers learned relatively little about his private life compared with protagonists in contemporary dramas. His relationships existed largely outside the program's central focus. Family conflict, personal trauma, and dramatic secrets rarely interrupted the rhythm of emergency response. Instead, the work itself defined the characters. Their professionalism became their identity. That creative decision gave emergency unusual staying power. Rather than aging through fashionable storylines or sensational plot twists, the series remained anchored in public service. Johnny Gage and Roy DeSoto succeeded because they represented dependable competence. Week after week, audiences watched ordinary professionals confronting extraordinary circumstances without seeking personal recognition. Heroism became routine rather than exceptional. For Randolph Mantooth, portraying Johnny Gage required considerable physical commitment. Long before action sequences relied heavily upon digital effects or elaborate stunt doubles, much of the program's excitement depended upon actors performing demanding practical work. Mantooth completed many of his own stunts, climbing ladders, navigating smoke-filled environments, running through hazardous locations, and participating in complex rescue sequences that demanded careful coordination with firefighters and stunt professionals. The production frequently filmed on location throughout Los Angeles, exposing cast members to genuine heat, heavy equipment, and physically exhausting conditions. Wearing firefighting gear beneath California sunshine presented its own challenge, while repeated rescue scenes demanded endurance over long filming days. Mantooth embraced those demands because realism remained central to the program's identity. Every believable rescue strengthened viewers' trust in the story unfolding before them. Chemistry between Mantooth and Kevin Tighe also became one of the series' defining strengths. Johnny Gage and Roy DeSoto represented different generations and personalities, yet neither overshadowed the other. Roy's measured experience balanced Johnny's youthful confidence, creating a partnership built on mutual respect rather than manufactured conflict. Their conversations often reflected the easy rhythm of colleagues who genuinely enjoyed working together, allowing audiences to believe these men had spent years responding to emergencies side by side. That authenticity extended beyond the camera. Mantooth and Tighe developed a lasting friendship that continued long after the program ended. Decades later, they would still appear together at firefighter conventions, emergency medical conferences, and anniversary celebrations, speaking warmly about both the series and the profession it helped introduce to mainstream America. The impact of Emergency soon reached far beyond television ratings. During the early 1970s, modern paramedic programs remained relatively new across much of the United States. Many communities still relied upon ambulance services offering limited medical treatment before hospital arrival. As millions watched Johnny Gage and Roy DeSoto perform advanced emergency care each week, public expectations began changing. Local governments faced growing pressure to improve emergency medical services, while hospitals expanded paramedic training programs. Although the series certainly did not create emergency medicine by itself, many historians acknowledge that it accelerated public understanding of what trained paramedics could accomplish. Countless firefighters, emergency medical technicians, and paramedics have since recalled that Emergency inspired their career choices. For many young viewers, Johnny Gage represented the first time they had seen emergency medicine portrayed as an honorable, highly skilled profession deserving of admiration. The program's popularity also extended into unexpected corners of popular culture. In 1973, the success of the live-action series inspired the animated Saturday morning program Emergency +4, aimed at younger audiences. Randolph Mantooth returned to voice Johnny Gage, introducing the character to children who might have been too young for the original drama. Although lighter in tone and featuring 4 adventurous teenagers assisting emergency responders, the cartoon retained the educational spirit that defined the parent series. Elsewhere, Johnny Gage became recognizable enough to earn mention in popular music. The Tubes referenced him in their 1975 song What Do You Want From Life, a playful indication that the character had entered the wider cultural vocabulary. Few television roles achieve that kind of recognition, particularly those rooted in public service rather than celebrity glamour. Across 6 seasons, Emergency established itself as one of NBC's signature dramas before concluding its regular run in 1977, followed by a series of television films that carried the story into 1979. By then, Randolph Mantooth had become inseparable from Johnny Gage in the minds of many viewers. While typecasting might have frustrated some performers, Mantooth appeared to understand the unique privilege attached to the role. He recognized that audiences associated Johnny Gage not merely with entertainment, but with reassurance, compassion, and trust. Rather than distancing himself from that legacy, he embraced it wholeheartedly throughout the decades that followed. He attended firefighter gatherings, supported emergency medical organizations, and spoke proudly about the program's continuing influence. Firefighters and paramedics frequently greeted him not simply as a television actor, but almost as an honorary colleague whose work had elevated public appreciation for their profession. That relationship reached one of its most meaningful moments in 2012. 4 decades after Emergency first aired, the Los Angeles County Fire Department honored both Randolph Mantooth and Kevin Tighe by naming them honorary fire chiefs. It was a remarkable tribute because it came not from the entertainment industry, but from the very profession they had spent years portraying with such care. The recognition carried profound symbolism. Firefighters are rarely generous with praise for inaccurate portrayals of their work, yet the department acknowledged that Mantooth and Tighe had helped educate generations of viewers while treating the profession with dignity and respect. It represented gratitude from real first responders to 2 actors who had never claimed to be firefighters themselves, but had worked tirelessly to honor those who were. By the time the applause faded, Johnny Gage had become something far greater than a successful television character. He stood as proof that thoughtful storytelling could shape public understanding, inspire future careers, and build lasting respect for an essential profession. Few actors spend 6 seasons playing a role that genuinely changes lives outside the studio gates. Randolph Mantooth did exactly that, and the echoes of that achievement continued to be heard every time another young recruit stepped into a paramedic classroom after first discovering the profession through a television screen. For many actors, a defining television role can become both a blessing and a limitation. Audiences struggle to separate the performer from the character they loved, while producers often hesitate to cast someone so closely associated with a single series. Randolph Mantooth faced exactly that challenge after Emergency came to an end, yet instead of chasing roles designed to erase Johnny Gage from public memory, he quietly built a second career based on consistency, professionalism, and an obvious love of acting. Daytime television became an important chapter in that journey. Soap operas demanded a very different set of skills from primetime dramas. Scripts arrived at an extraordinary pace, dialogue had to be memorized overnight, and emotional scenes were often filmed with very little rehearsal. It was an environment that rewarded discipline as much as talent, qualities Mantooth had demonstrated throughout his years on Emergency. In 1987, he joined the cast of Loving, playing the wealthy businessman Clay Alden. The character quickly became one of the program's central figures, allowing Mantooth to explore a more layered and morally complex personality than audiences had previously seen. His time on the series stretched until 1990, and when Loving evolved into The City several years later, he returned in the new role of Alex Masters between 1993 and 1995, once again proving his ability to adapt to changing storylines while maintaining the credibility that had always defined his performances. Soap audiences also became familiar with him through appearances on General Hospital, where he portrayed Richard Halifax, while additional roles followed in As the World Turns and One Life to Live. Each series introduced him to a new generation of viewers who may never have watched Emergency during its original run. Rather than living solely on nostalgia, he continued to work steadily in one of television's most demanding formats. His performances did not go unnoticed. Over the years, he received 4 Soap Opera Digest Award nominations, recognition that reflected the respect he had earned within daytime television. Awards were never the defining feature of his career, but those nominations demonstrated that colleagues and critics appreciated the same qualities viewers had recognized for decades: honesty, reliability, and an ability to make even familiar television situations feel grounded in genuine human emotion. Perhaps even more telling than nominations were the memories shared by fellow actors. Rena Sofa, among those who worked alongside him, spoke warmly about Mantooth as a generous mentor whose kindness extended far beyond the camera. She described someone who offered encouragement without seeking attention, a veteran performer willing to guide younger cast members through the demanding pace of soap production. Those tributes painted a picture remarkably similar to the one audiences had formed over many years. The compassion visible in Johnny Gage seemed to reflect something authentic in the man portraying him. Even as daytime television occupied much of his professional life, Mantooth never disappeared from primetime screens. Through the 1990s and 2000s, he accepted carefully chosen guest appearances that demonstrated his versatility without attempting to reinvent himself completely. Viewers encountered him in series including Ghost Whisperer and Criminal Minds, where his calm presence continued to lend authority to every scene. His final television appearance arrived in 2011 with Sons of Anarchy, where he portrayed Charlie Horse, the respected chief of the Wahewa tribe. Although the role was brief compared with Johnny Gage, it carried quiet significance. It acknowledged both his maturity as a performer and his Native American heritage, allowing him to bring dignity and wisdom to a character rooted in cultural identity rather than stereotype. Away from television sets, another role gradually became just as important. Randolph Mantooth evolved into one of the most recognizable public advocates for firefighters, paramedics, and emergency medical technicians in the United States. Unlike many actors who leave their best-known characters behind, he embraced the connection wholeheartedly. He traveled extensively to conferences, fundraising events, training seminars, and public safety campaigns, speaking directly with the men and women whose profession had inspired Emergency. Decades earlier, those appearances were never treated as nostalgic reunions alone. Mantooth understood that emergency medicine continued evolving, and he used his public profile to support education, recruitment, and greater appreciation for first responders. Countless photographs from later life show him standing comfortably beside firefighters in uniform, attending charity events, or meeting new generations of paramedics who had grown up watching the series through syndication. His advocacy also extended to Native American organizations and causes connected with indigenous communities. Proud of his Cherokee and Seminole heritage through his father, he remained supportive of initiatives promoting representation, education, and cultural awareness. Throughout his career, he demonstrated that public recognition could be used not merely to celebrate past achievements but to strengthen communities whose voices often received less attention. Health challenges eventually entered his own story. In 2015, Mantooth publicly revealed through Facebook that he had been diagnosed with cancer. The announcement surprised many admirers who had long associated him with vitality and resilience. Characteristically, the message carried optimism rather than self-pity, thanking supporters while expressing determination to face treatment. Subsequent updates indicated that therapy had been successful, and for a time it appeared he had overcome another difficult obstacle. He remained active whenever health allowed, continuing public appearances and maintaining close friendships with former colleagues, particularly Kevin Tighe. Together with Tighe and actor Steve Buscemi, whose father had served as a New York City firefighter, Mantooth helped produce the documentary Into the Unknown, the Paramedics Journey. The project examined the development of emergency medical services and paid tribute to the professionals whose work had inspired emergency. In the first place, it felt like a natural continuation of everything he had represented since the early 1970s, using storytelling to honor those who save lives. As the years passed, however, the effects of prolonged illness gradually limited public appearances. Fans noticed fewer convention visits and less frequent interviews, though admiration never faded. News that Randolph Mantooth had died on the 9th of July, 2026 at the age of 80, while receiving hospice care in Ventura, California following a long illness, prompted tributes from every corner of the emergency services community as well as the entertainment industry. Former colleagues remembered his generosity, firefighters thanked him for portraying their profession with uncommon respect, and viewers reflected on a familiar face that had offered reassurance during countless evenings in front of the television. The remarkable aspect of Randolph Mantooth's legacy lies in the fact that it cannot be measured solely by ratings, awards, or years spent on screen. Many actors create memorable characters. Far fewer help shape public understanding of an entire profession. Johnny Gage entered living rooms as a fictional paramedic, but he left behind something profoundly real. Across decades, thousands of emergency medical technicians and paramedics have spoken about discovering their future careers because of a television program that treated public service with seriousness instead of spectacle. That influence continues every time an ambulance crew responds to a desperate call, every time a trainee begins learning advanced emergency care, and every time someone remembers that the first glimpse of modern paramedicine came not from a textbook, but from a weekly drama determined to show ordinary professionals doing extraordinary work. Randolph Mantooth spent a lifetime portraying courage without exaggeration, compassion without sentimentality, and professionalism without ego. Those qualities made Johnny Gage unforgettable, but they also ensured that the man behind the uniform would be remembered with the same respect. Some television stars entertain an audience for a season. Randolph Mantooth inspired careers, elevated a profession, and helped change the way millions viewed the people who arrive when every second matters. Few legacies could be more enduring than that.